Hi folks, Mr. Teslonian back here again. I want to take you through a project I'm working on for the production of what's called biocrude oil, which is basically another term for a creosote that you produce from Syn-Gas production, otherwise known as gasification production. Let me take you through what we've got going on here. The system's not quite done, but right now I'm doing a test of how much gas is going to get produced by the system. That is a sealed can. Let me walk you around and show you what it looks like there. It's got just a single pipe rolling out of the back side of it, so 1-inch piece of black iron gas pipe. Real quickly here, this will be hooked up right here, this other can, right to here. I have a plug in there right now. That's going to be your first heavy creosote collection container. The gas is going to roll down here, and what happens right here is you can tell there's a little bit of gas starting to roll out. With the wind here, it's a little difficult to tell. But there's some gas starting to roll out right there out of the top, and all I have to do is shut this valve when I'm ready, and the gas is going to start working its way through the system much more effective. As this gas starts to cool, it's going to come up to here, it's going to work its way uphill. As it does so, the hydrogen inside of the gas will be the lightest of all the gases traveling uphill and definitely make it over the top. Much of the creosote we built re-drip down into the second collection container here. Now the rest of it's going to go up, cross through the pipe here, come down through this, and right now what I'm doing with this can is setting it up to become a condenser. I'm going to fill it with cold water. That's going to make a coil inside of it, come out the bottom. Here I just wanted to see what kind of gas I'm producing. Alright folks, here we are back again. This is going to be the biocrude oil production system here. I'm going to take you through right now. We've got it heated up. You can see a heat shield I just threw on there. It was kind of hot, so it's not going to be too straight. But this is going to be producing what's called biocrude oil. I'm going to take you through here and just show you that our Syn-Gas production is doing pretty well. So here's the smoke coming out of the end of the whole system right here. Let's hit that with a lighter. If I can get the lighter to light. There we go. And as you can tell, it's a good burning gas there, nice and clean. Direct composition of basically hydrogen, methane, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and a little bit of nitrogen. Alright, so it's been about 35 minutes now. The Syn-Gas looks like it's slowing down a little bit, but I also lost some temperature on the wood stove, so it could be that. Obviously the gas is still very volatile, holding lots and lots of energy still. One neat thing about this that I wanted to show you, which is a good sign, let me put that out, is this. If I take this hose and I drip, if there was any moisture being built at all inside of this hose right now, that means my system's failing. So if I lift this hose up from this end towards that end over there where the smoke's coming out, let's slowly do this. Let's see if there's any moisture in the hose whatsoever here. Oop. I see zero moisture dripping out of the end of that hose. No wet spots down there whatsoever. That's a great sign. That means we're condensing out all the possible moisture we can out of this. It's a very clean synthetic gas produced right there. Something that can be used in an engine without destroying the engine. Let's see how nicely that lights. So there you go. Very nice fuel source. Like I said, this has been about 35 minutes. Let me go ahead and set that back up the way it was. Just to make sure, we'll test it at the very end one more time to see if there was any moisture content built up in the pipe. So far there's been none. So there we go. Let's go ahead and light that one more time. And there you go. That's a great clean burning gas. It takes no time to light. Tomorrow I'm going to hook that up to two different things. First to a generator and then to a propane powered refrigeration system. Once again in the background, you notice our oil production there. I'm not sure how much more we can produce here. It looks like there's still a little bit of action happening in there, so let me go back around to that jar here. We'll see if there's any dripping still happening in there. Take me just a second here. Let's see if we can catch any kind of action taking place inside the jar here. Oh, yep, there was drip action there. I just saw the tension on top move there slightly. Try to hold still, see if you can see it. Not a lot, obviously, so maybe what's happening here is the water. No, the jug still feels pretty cool. that still feels pretty cool. The water inside our condensation, or condensate. Alright, so we finally achieved the end of this run. Right now you can tell there's almost zero smoke coming out of the end of that hose, which we can actually still light, in fact. I can show you that that's actually lit with another piece of paper. There is still actually a flammable gas coming out, but it's so very little. I don't even know if there's a flame there anymore. Let's see. Nope. Alright, maybe it went out. The wind is blowing. So that's a pretty good sign that we're basically done on synthetic gas production. So there we go. Now we'll go over here and take a quick look at what we were able to produce in the third container. And then I'm going to open up the other jugs and we're going to do a full showing of just how much was produced within the system. So here you go, that's a pretty good indicator of just how much we got in the final and third condensing system here. Put my finger up to that so you can kind of get a visual of just how much. Not a lot, but quite a bit for the very third end of it all. For a small amount of wood, it's a lot more than I was expecting in the end. One nice thing is we got very, very little in the bottom of the fourth condensing jug, just a little bit there. That's a great safety measure to make sure the gas going into any generator or any other unit's very, very clean. It's a great sign that not much made it in there. So let's go on here and just look. We've got quite a great crude apparent here up on the top. Let me go ahead and put my finger in that. As you can see, this is a really nice black crude. I got some shadowing here, weird time of the day. So that's really nice. I got a little bit of a pressure seal right there that blew, so I'm going to have to fix that so I don't get this up on top up here. Let me wipe that off there. It's got a really nice oily color to it, nice consistency. That's about as watery as that one's going to be in the second container here. Our first container is going to be a very thick, very heavy black crude oil. You can see some of the water up on top, and I pull that off of there, and it's got a nice crude oil float on top of it, which I'll have to pull off of there. That was from when I was first experimenting with the cap here. So there you go. There's our first production so far. Let me go ahead and take this all apart, and I'm going to show you each grade of oil and how much we got. Alright, we're looking at the first jug here. This is what was collected out of the second container, the second condenser jug. 5-gallon can at the very bottom of the downhill slope of the first extended pipe. You can see here, if I rock that, it's got a nice oily look to it. It's a little more liquid than the first catch. A little thinner, but it's very, very black, very nice. And if we look at it right here on the side, you can see just about how much we got out of that. And let's see, that is about 1/4 gallon right there. So let's go ahead and go on to this one. Now this is the glass jug that we had been looking at the whole time. And as you can see, if I move that around, there's a nice black layer on the bottom and this really golden honey-colored oil floating around up above that. And you notice if that black stuff and the honey color weren't both oils, the black would be on top. Typical if that was water and oil. So that was how much we collected, minus a little bit of experimenting from there, obviously. And then this is from the first one. This is a very thick crude oil. You can tell because I can put it up on the edge of the glass there, pull it back. You can see a lot of it left over behind on the glass. Still a little bit of water in there that we're going to condense out of this now that we're going to put this through the refinery. So if you look at that jar, we ended up with not too bad, a little bit there. What is that jar? About a 1 quart, maybe a 1.5 quart jar, so I'm not sure. Maybe a 1/2 quart to a quart of really thick crude there out of that one. So if we made a total measurement here between the three, we probably ended up with just under 1/2 gallon of crude oil, minus also what I have here. So let me go ahead and pull these test tubes up one by one here and show you the consistency and the color up close. So you can see from the fourth and final collector here, it's a very thin colored, almost rusty looking liquid, very thin, very viscous, not much consistency to it. Let's go ahead and grab the second container here. You'll notice a really beautiful golden color to that fuel. It's about the last of where the oils really collect, a higher grade of oil. Alright, you can notice how thin it is. It doesn't stick up on the glass all that well. Let's go to the second catch here. This is where we start getting into a little bit darker crude. And you'll notice in there, if I move that around, it will actually color the glass but won't fully stay on it. That's a pretty good indicator to the quality of fuel you get there. Very liquid. Alright, and fourth and final one here. As you can tell, if I roll that onto the glass, say towards us here, it'll actually stay and coat the glass. As you can tell right there by the streak running down it. That's a very thick crude. You can tell when I try to roll it there, it doesn't roll like the rest. It's a very slow moving crude oil. So that's what we're collecting in the very first collector, and as you can tell, it'll sit up there on the glass. We got some evaporation bubbles in between it there, but I can show you from this side. Very dark crude oil. So the next step of this project now is to put this all through the refinery, which will actually be connected inside the wood stove that made all of this. So in the end, what we'll have is all the liquid being produced, the crude oil, will once again flow back through the wood stove, go through the refinery, out the refinery tower, and on the other side we'll have a high-grade fuel to use in any engine. I hope you enjoyed. Until next time, this was Mr. Thessalonian and the Thessalonian Man Show. Hi there folks, Mr. Thessalonian back here again. Really quickly, I set up a little spot. I've got some high winds going today. I've been trying to do this shot for the last few minutes. I can't keep the lighter lit to show you what's going on here. I want to show you the crude oil, the biocrude, actually burning and in action, so you can see that it's actually quite flammable. So give me just a moment here. I'm going to walk over there, scrape some up, light it on fire, and show you what it can do. Alright, so what we got here is we got one stick that I just set up in another shot. I may use that later on, so I'm not going to light that now. We're going to start from fresh. We've got some cardboard here. I'm going to go ahead and shred a little chunk of it up. This is a funnel. Well, here, we'll start with this. This is the jar that we had the amber looking crude inside of. That was that jar we were watching fill. I've dumped most of the lighter liquid out of there, and right now, if you look inside of there, there's this layer of a very golden oil that's very heavy, very sticky, that doesn't want to come out of there very easily. So I'm going to wipe this piece of cardboard around inside of there, and we're going to take a sample and see how well it burns. You can see it's actually a good oil when you put it in there. My hands are going to get very covered here trying to do this. Alright, so you can see here we've got a nice sample of that biocrude oil there, some on my fingers. If the winds will allow us here, let's see how it lights. So there you go, just a brief moment in the lighter and we've got ignited fuel. The wind is shifting on me a bit here, so it's going to be difficult to see the flames going to the opposite way all of a sudden. But it's an aggressive burn. You can see the black smoke from the oil burning off the top of that. Alright, so there's one good test, and it doesn't want to go out. There we go. Let me go ahead and take another piece of this cardboard. Here, we'll use a stick this time, just to show you it on a piece of wood. We'll take that jar once again. I'm going to get even oilier this time. Try to wipe it around in there and get some of that oil to cover that stick for a good sample here. So there you go. We basically were able to cover that entire stick with this biocrude that's inside of there. Let's see how well we can get it to light here. So there you go. Just a moment with the lighter and some wind cooperation to keep it going from the right direction. And there's your biocrude on fire. highly flammable fluid. You can see it's raging right towards my fingers there. I'm going to have to let it go. Got me a little bit of a burn, but there you go. So that's your biocrude in action. It's highly flammable, usable fuels. Once again, just another sample here. Since my hands are already covered, I'll take another piece of wood here and try to saturate it with some more of this oil. So as you can tell here, I'm just really trying to wipe that stick around in there, making a good mess of everything, trying to put a good coating so you can really see that this is quite a flammable oil. Hopefully it doesn't light all the way up to my fingers there, huh? No, it'll be alright. So here we go. Obviously that stick is heavily covered. Once again, if wind's permanent for us here, we're going to put that up. And there you go. You're already on fire. Highly flammable fluid, as you can tell. We had a little bit of a traveling cinder there for a second. So there you go, a lot of fuel energy. As you can tell, it's still traveling. Set that down, starting to get hot. Well, I hope that's a good example and demonstration. The winds are changing without the oxygen to the underside. Once again, I'll relight that for you. And it's basically used up all its fuel energy. So there's your biocrude in action, just to show you that it is obviously a very flammable substance. The crude that we were burning here is actually what came out of this container. If I hold that jar out, that's that amber colored, not even the darkest of it all. That was actually the dark crude that you saw on the bottom of the jar when I showed it to you in the earlier film, without the lighter stuff in there. So that's what that looked like, and without any real distillation or anything, it's obviously highly flammable fuel. I hope you enjoyed. Until next time, this is Mr. Thessalonian and the Thessalonian Man Show. Hi folks, Mr. Thessalonian back here again. I want to take you through how to convert this biocrude oil I just showed you how to make in the prior films into a usable fuel. A quick demonstration of how this is going to work. We have a gasifying cook stove back here that's going to provide our heat. We have a test tube here, and in that test tube what I've done, and in the prior video, this is test tube number 1 with the thickest and the darkest of the crude we produced out of the very first collector in the system. And that's what we're running through first. So we're going to start in line and run each one of these and see which one produces the best fuel, is the easiest. So I have that right now inside of this test tube. It's going to run up through this condenser I showed you. I pulled the condenser off of the other project. It goes into the first collector, comes out and into a secondary collector, and out of the top of that again. That should give us some kind of indication of fuel production. So let me go ahead without any ado here and start this fire up in the gasifier and see if we can't get our production started. I'm going to have gloves on and start moving this gasifier out from underneath this quite a bit. I don't need that much flame. It'll be way more than I need, so I'm going to have to kind of be on this while we're doing this shot. Alright, so here we go. Fire starting. Now, over on the other side there, what I can do is probably zoom in the camera as we get this cooking up a little bit and show you the actual fuel stilling out inside of those jars, in the collector jars. I just want to show you it starting up first. See if we can't move that back just a little bit. We don't need that much flame. I've got some good gloves on here, so I'll be able to mess with it a bit. Should have made a little handle on it. Might have been quite a bit easier. That's the next project maybe on the gasifying stove. Alright, so there we go. We got some flame going here. What we're going to do now is go ahead and I'm going to zoom in on those collectors and see if we can't show fuel being produced here. So give me just a second here to readjust this camera. Alright, there we go. Now there's a sticker right in front of that one. So it'll still give you some kind of indication there, kind of jumping around. You should be able to see exactly what's being produced in the system right there. So we're going to go ahead and let this run now. I'm going to have to adjust this flame quickly. It's gotten pretty big. Alright, so I'm going to let the film run. I'm going to talk a little bit through it here, why I'm adjusting this flame. I've got quite a big flame, quite a big system I'm using here. I could have made a smaller gasifier for this. It's basically my Bunsen burner I'm using here. Alright, I can hear the crude starting to bubble in there just a little bit, so I'm going to back the flame off slightly. Now, one of the things I have inside of that copper tube that I showed you, that was attached to the top end. Alright, so we got this flame roaring up here at the very end. Trying to see if there's anything left whatsoever inside of our system here of our biocrude conversion into gasoline. You can see the gasifying cook stove over here, heating our test tube. There's still quite a bit of condensation showing up here inside of this test tube. I'm not sure what kind of fuels those are. I am going to test it here real quick as we stop the system in a moment. Once this ends and once I stop seeing condensation, I'll believe that most of my fuel has been produced. The only thing that should be left inside of this flask when I'm done is going to be basically coke ash, which is a heavy carbon ash. So that should be all that's left. And you can't really see inside of it at the moment, so I'm not sure how close to producing that coke ash I really am. So we're going to let that burn just a little bit longer here and see just how much more is going to be produced. Probably heard one of those squirrels in the background just now. Alright, I'm actually seeing in the second condenser jug now, I think I see some liquid finally building in there. Let me go over and shake that real quick and see if there is actually a liquid flow. Does appear to be some liquid. Very, very little. It's not much. I can see just a light coating gathering at the bottom there. So not really much there. That could be just a further distillation from the original process here. We've been burning now for a good 10 minutes or more, and I'm pretty sure that most of what was inside of this has been cracked off of there, even though I still see quite a bit of condensation built in the top of this test tube. That does make me curious on how much more fuel is really there. We're going to go ahead and end this process when the fire dies down a bit here and test out that fuel it just produced and see just how well it works. See whether or not we've refined it far enough to become a gasoline, or if it's actually a diesel in that first one. Still, it needs to be further refined. And the winds are going to kick up here and kind of blow that flame, so that's not going to be hitting our test tube. So I'm going to lift it up and try to finish this off at a really high temperature. See if we can't isolate the very last of anything in there. I can still hear it crackling and bubbling in there, so there's still something in there for energy. I can start seeing some steam building inside that jar over there. So there is some kind of moisture right now still transferring through the system. So I'll keep going here briefly. For the diehards, I left this part of the whole process in there for people that truly wanted to see how far I took this, just to show you what the fuel is on the other side. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and pull that down. I'm going to let the system cool a bit here. We're going to go over to that final jug. First of all, let's go ahead and lift this condenser once and just see if any extra fluid had been stuck inside of the coil there. Alright, well, I don't see much more. Alright, now that we've let the fire die down, I'm going to go ahead and remove the camera here. I wanted to show you something that I was talking about. We still got some nice red coals burning inside of there, you can see flashing. So I'm going to keep the camera out from over that. But I was going to tell you, you know, as I was saying throughout the shot, there's condensation or a moisture building still at the top of the test tube. And I'm not sure why it's building so thick and then running back down without ever leaving the system. I may have some restriction in here that I'm going to have to take a look at. But we did end up with some fuel out the other side here. So let's take a better look at this fuel. And you can see it. Let's see here. You see a little bit of it rocking around down in the very bottom down there. We're going to try to light this on fire real quickly here. Let's go ahead and set the camera down and see how well this lights on fire. Okay, so here we go. Alright, so what I've got here is I've got a lighter and a few sticks. I don't know, we got a couple pieces of wood and some sticks here. We got a lighter. Alright, so let's go ahead and see just how flammable, if at all, our fuel. Let me go ahead and give you a shot there if I can inside the jar, showing you there's some sediment in there. Then now that could have come out of the pipe. It actually has an oil appearance to it. I was just looking at it, kind of a darker color, still kind of amber colored on the fuel here. So we're going to take a longer stick, rub it around inside of that, try to get it covered, and see if this will burn at all. So here we go. There we go. Wow, look at that. It burned immediately and is almost gone. So there you go. That was the flash burn of our fuel. If it burned that fast, I'm actually expecting this to evaporate very quickly. Let's try that again. Alright, you can see the moisture all over the stick here. We can get the lighter to light. There we go. And it's burned off. Okay, so I don't want the stick to burn here. Let's try that again. This seems to be a pretty good grade of fuel. It doesn't have a lot of length to its burn, but it's got a good flash, which means it's probably more of a gasoline. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? So, there you go. That's how to refine from wood all the way to gasoline, or some form of high-grade fuel here. I'm going to keep playing around with this just for a moment, just to show you. Hopefully this will continue to burn the whole way. Yeah, look at that. That's just great. Look how fast it burns away, though. That's really impressive. Leaves almost no residue behind as it's doing so. It's almost burning more as an alcohol than it is of a gasoline. I'm going to have to try this next to normal gasoline and see what the difference is going to be. It's got a little bit of an oil smoke to it when it burns. Pretty neat. I'm going to save this little bit now, and I'm going to try to do a couple more experiments with it just to see exactly what it is. Our next process, let me go ahead and put this back together so it doesn't evaporate all out of there. Alright, now did we get any fuel inside the second jar? Hold on, before I go on. I don't really... Let's see if we got any light whatsoever. It's a curious fuel. It drew the flame in for a moment instead of blowing the flame out. So I'm pretty sure alcohol and gasoline burn differently, and I'm going to have to look up again which one burns which direction. That'll give me a pretty good idea. That actually pulled the flame inwards instead of blowing the flame outwards. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed how to make gasoline or some form of fuel to run an engine off of wood from the beginning by turning it into biocrude oil, then distilling it like we have here today and turning it into gasoline. Our next project is going to be taking this grade right here, this honey oil, and now running this through the system and seeing what kind of fuel we can turn this into. Well, I hope you enjoyed. Until next time, this is Mr. Thessalonian and the Thessalonian Man Show.